Hello, welcome to another session with Terry class. All right, today we'll be talking about the American Civil War. And very quickly, you may wonder why the Civil War happened. Well, simply because the North was more emancipated and they wanted to be unified, but the Southern depended on farm and slavery. So these ideologies collided, and this caused conflict of interest, which led to the Civil War. Now, what would you learn today? Let's get into the facts. Today, students will be able to determine what were the causes of the American Civil War, who were the individuals during the Civil War, people who actually partook in this war and actually left a name for themselves. Students also will be able to know the impact that the Civil War had on the American society, politics, and also economics, because economics is always part of a war. On to the next one. Stay tuned. Don't get bored. Now, we know that the American Civil War began from 1861 to 65, and it was fought between the North and the South. The North felt like the country needed to be united. The Southern part refused because they felt like if they got united, they would lose their money, which was based on slavery and also farming. All right. So what else were the causes of the Civil War? Of course, slavery, because the South depended on slavery. States' right, because once slavery is abolished, people have more rights, and that can affect people's livelihood. And economic differences. As I said earlier, the North depended more on the modern technology. We had the Industrial Revolution, sinking in the building of the Erie Canal, and eventually in the 1850s, things were changing, but the South wasn't really ready for that specific change. All right, what are the main events that took place here? We have Abraham Lincoln as a Republican in 1860. You'll be surprised. A lot of people think he's a Democrat. No, he wasn't. All right. In 61, we have the seven southern states secede the Union from the Confederates of the Civil War. In 62, we have the bloodiest battle in a single day in American history. President Lincoln issued Emancipation Proclamation. In 63, we have the Union wins the Battle of Gettysburg. Gettysburg, Maryland, brings back memories. The turning point of the war, the President Lincoln delivers Gettysburg's address. All right, and then we have in 64, General T. Sherman begins his famous march to the sea and destroys Georgia completely. And then in 65, the General Robert E. Lee surrenders to the General Ulysses Grant and the courts of House of Virginia, effectively ending the war, and this war ends there. Very interesting, right? Now, the next thing is to know what were the key events. Okay, we had the attack on Fort Sumter, which was the first battle of the Civil War and is often considered as the beginning of the war. The Battle of Gettysburg, because this was a turning point of the war, considers one of the most significant battles in American history. The Emancipation Proclamation, this was a key moment of the war as it freed the slaves from the Confederates, which means the South, and changed the focus of the war from one preserving the Union to one ending slavery. And then we have the Sherman's March to the Sea, which was devastating campaign that helped to end the war and demonstrates the Union's military superiority. Assassination of President Lincoln. Unfortunately, this was an epic event where the President Lincoln is murdered by John William Booth. Ah, sigh. Why? It's part of history. The impact of the Civil War, where it abolished slavery. We are no more slaves. We no more have slaves in America. Because of that, we were able to rebuild our country and have a national identity as Americans, be proud of who we are, right? Political realignment. Now we have a united country. It's no more about the South, the North, and the West, but the United States of America. Economic modernization, I apologize, is now we have a country that's not just dependent on farms and slavery, but on technology and so many other income sources. And then military innovation, of course, the army gets new equipment, more unified, one army for one country. That is very interesting. Now, this is the end of the course. Always remember, check and understanding what were the causes of the Civil War. Of course, always economic, because slaves made money for the aristocrats and they didn't want to leave that because they knew nothing better. Leaving all of that, they had to start from scratch. That was problematic. Two keys of a form of civil war events. Okay, we have the Battle of Gettysburg and the March to the Sea. These are three impact of the Civil War. We have economics. Okay, we have unified army, and also we can definitely say that the country was more unified economically. army wise, and etc. I hope that you had fun. This was a quick course on the why we had the Civil War. Stay tuned for another class. Thierry out of the building.